G'day, mate. Watch out for the cannibalistic giants just waiting to drag you into the shadows and consume your flesh. Today, we're going down under to look back over the Sasquatches of Australia, the Solomon Islands, New Zealand, and Hawaii. Just like my previous retrospective on the Sasquatches of Africa, in this video I've grouped my previous shorts together by geography, but I've also filmed new segments where I give my thoughts on these cryptids. You might be wondering why I skipped the Asian Bigfoots. That's because I'm grouping Asia and Europe together in a series of Eurasian Bigfoot vids. There's just so much overlap between the Middle East and the Mediterranean, between Eastern Europe and Central Asia, and between Russia and the Nordic countries. Animals don't stop at nation borders, so it's only natural that there would be so much overlap. Before we travel to the Pacific though, the like button has swallowed the sub button whole with its toothy maw. If you like and sub, the like button will spit the sub button out. The first section will cover the crypto-hominids of Australia, as well as the one species from the Solomon Islands. Come on down under to learn about Australia's chironeer. I will also be covering them in my werewolf video that's coming out on Halloween, but they aren't just werewolf-like, they also fall in the category of canine wild men. They're monstrous dog-headed men with loose bags, like a pelican's, hanging from their mouths and chins. Chironeer are malevolent, hunting and killing humans in the outback. In Australia, there's been sightings of elephantine humanoids. They're 4 feet tall, like many other shorter crypto-hominids, and covered with gray, wrinkly skin like that of an elephant, similar to the African galoko. They have elephant-like limbs, like the African bulgu, a large, thick trunk, no ears, and small, beady eyes. They have a strange, shuffling walk. I've grouped the Jimbra, Jojung, Junjuti, and Najimbin into one entry, both because there's little info on these cryptids, and because I think they're all describing the same beings. The names seem to be related, and might mean devil or evil spirit. They're bipedal, ape-like with dark fur, and heights ranging from 3 to 10 feet tall. Some sources say they are violent, while others say they're benign. Still in Australia, we have the Koyorowin, also known as Tunaburang. Koyorowin is a singular being in the myths, but I've included him in this list because the description sounds like a wild man / Bigfoot type. Perhaps the indigenous people gave a specific crypto-hominid the name Koyorowin. He is 10 to 13 feet tall, covered in hair, and attacks people with a cudgel and eats them. His call is described as a trill, which reminds me of the whistling calls of other crypto-hominids. Kura Wilbin is the wife of last week's cryptid Koyorowin. She has an upright horn or sharp-pointed stick on each shoulder for piercing her victims, who are either men or children, or maybe both. There's not a lot of info on her, but if she's anything like her husband, then she's 10 to 13 feet tall and is almost certainly eating her victims. She may also have a trill-like call. A salt lake, an endless sky, a sun that never sets. Journey beneath dried-up Lake Kumpenpindil in Australia, where the cannibalistic Nge Uern Galku live. Their name means will eat me, for that is what they do. They look humanoid, except for their large fangs and long, curved fingernails. Sometimes they're described as hairy and with protruding eyes. According to young Kura Billy Atkins, an indigenous Australian and senior custodian of the area surrounding Kumpenpindil, when the wind is blowing, we can go there, can go past. If the wind stops, you can't go any further, because Nge Uern Galku is there. Colonization devastated Australia's indigenous peoples, as it did in other places. Ways of life were destroyed, animals went extinct, or were greatly diminished. Did that happen to cryptids too? Australia's Pancarlangu, hairy hominids with sharp toenails and teeth, living out in the bush, may have been driven to near extinction, but are now making a comeback. In 2013, a family of Pancarlangu, a father, a mother, and a child, were seen over a period of days traveling into the Tanami Desert. Descriptions of Pancarlangu remind me of the more well-known Australian Yowie. Could they be the same species? Painted on rocks in Queensland, Australia, are striking images of long-limbed, long-eared humanoids called quinkin. The art is extremely old and might represent spirits that inhabit the dreaming, or ancestors of the Aboriginal Australians. Others think these drawings are of the Yowie, or even aliens. There are myths of indigenous Australians warring with quinkin tribes. It's hard to know what this rock art was meant to represent and who the quinkin were or are. In Dreamtime, when the world was young, quinkins tormented the Aboriginal Australians. They were tall, with long limbs, the better to grab their victims. One specific quinkin was named Taramali. His story is told in Taramali the Giant Quinkin by Dick Ruffsey, an Australian Aboriginal artist. That's where I'm getting my information from this short. Taramali stomped through the outback, hunting for prey. His stomps sounded like thunder. But eventually he was tricked. and fell to his death, freeing the people from fear of him. Haunting the outback are the Yapa Ngarnu, literally the human-eating, cannibal, or people-eater. Pancarlangu, covered in an earlier short, are a type of Yapa Ngarnu. They are said to resemble popular depictions of Neanderthals. This description matches other cryptids from Australia: Jembra, Jojung, Junjudi, Njimbin, Koyorowin, Kurawilbin, Inge Ungalku, and Yowis. Perhaps they are all the same species. The tall, hairy humanoid lumbers towards you. Is it Bigfoot? The name Yowie comes from an Aboriginal word meaning hairy man. But wait, are those fangs? Australia's Bigfoot, the Yowie, also called the tusked Yowie, are tall, hairy, ape-like bipeds, but what's striking about them is their big red mouths, often with fangs. And they use those fangs to eat people. On screen is a 1907 drawing of a Yowie swallowing a human whole. As I mentioned in a previous short, the Yowie might be a type of Yapa Ngarnu, or people eater. Other names for the Yowie are Yahoo, an older name for them, Jangara, a people eater from Ingalia mythology, and Yoroma, a big hairy man-eating biped from New South Wales in Australia. The Guadalcanal giants, also known as the Solomon Island giants. They're 10 to 20 feet tall with reddish fur. Sightings of them persist in the modern age. In 1988, a bulldozer blade broke, and since it was too heavy to move, the construction workers left the blade on the ground overnight. The next day, the blade was gone, having been dragged into the rainforest by something with human-like tracks. The main thing I noticed from this section is how many of these creatures are so similar not only to each other, but to other Sasquatches around the world. Many of the beings listed on screen might be the same or related species. The Solomon Islands giant, living on an island, would presumably be a separate but related species to whatever Australian Bigfoot species there is. And I also just have to mention that much like the known species of Australia, who are known for their strangeness, Australian Bigfoot has unique features not commonly found in other species, such as tusks. And speaking of strangeness, Chironeer and the elephant humanoid are quite strange. Chironeer is part of a broad tradition of canine bipeds, although it has its own weird Aussie flair. But the elephant humanoid is a class all its own. I'd say it's too bizarre to be real, but this is Australia we're talking about, the country with the egg-laying venomous platypus, and this is one I just learned about today, the cube-pooping wombat. Yes, wombats baffle scientists with their cube-shaped dew. Other global examples include hagfish, that can make enough slime to equal 400 times their own volume, and the Amazonian pacu, which has human-like teeth. Up next are the two New Zealand species, Maero and Patupayarahe. The wild, lost tribe, the Maero or Mohau of New Zealand. Who were they? What were they? They looked human, but bigger and hairier. They were said to be uncivilized, but they did use stone clubs, and they warred with the Maori in the legendary past. They were said to eat people, and were driven out by the Maori, which is a story we see all around the world. It's unclear if they were another tribe of humans, they may have interbred with the Maori, or a cryptid primate, or some supernatural race. They still haunt remote areas and attack people today. In the misty mountains, the sound of a flute. Who or what is playing the flute? It's the mysterious Patupayarahe, or Turehu. They're said to have inhabited New Zealand before the Maori people arrived. They looked human and had pale skin and pale or red hair. They seemed to be more primitive than the Maori people, as they did not have fire or cook their food. Although, as I mentioned, they did have flutes, and in one story they taught the Maori people how to use fishing nets. So where did they go? Some say they still live in the mountains to this very day. The Maero might be related to whatever cryptohominid species may be living in nearby Australia. It is important to note, however, that there's not a lot of overlap between the fauna of Australia and the fauna of New Zealand. So it's also possible that Maero might not be particularly closely related to any Australian Bigfoot. But let's talk about Patupayarahe/Turehu. They are much more like classic fairies, and in some ways they don't seem like they should be included in a list of Bigfoot species. They have been included though for a number of reasons, including their similarities to the Menehune, which will be covered in the next segment of this video. And if you've kept up with my channel, you know that there are many other wild man/Sasquatch types that have red hair/fur and or demonstrate tool use. This last section covers the three species endemic to Hawaii, Aikanaka/Newo, Menehune, and the ogres of Niihau. In ancient times, cannibalistic giants roamed the earth. We tell this story all over the world, and today I'm going to tell you about the Hawaiian version of this story. Aikanaka was a giant cannibalistic chief who married a moon goddess in the mythic past. Others say before modern Hawaiians came to the island, the Nawau lived there but were killed off by the Menehune, another mysterious race that I will cover later. But in the 1960s, these tales allegedly became very real. A giant man was seen and identified by a native Hawaiian as Aikanaka, and a 2-foot-long print was found. Modern depictions show him with fur and a pointy head. Giants continue to be seen. The ancient little people who built old sites throughout Hawaii, the Menehune. They warred with the Nawau, as I mentioned in their short a couple of weeks ago. The Menehune are short, and they came out only at night to build their ancient sites. Supposedly, they vanished when modern Hawaiians came to the islands. Where did they go? Maybe they died, left to another dimension, or intermarried with the Hawaiians. An 1820 census of Kauai listed 65 people as Menehune. Some have claimed that the Menehune were low-class human members of Hawaiian society, hence their inclusion in a census. Life in ancient times was hard. No indoor plumbing, no modern medicine, no Netflix. But it seems like life was way harder than we had thought. It seems like there were loads of man-eating bipeds roaming around, preying on early humans. In Niihau, Hawaii, there's a story about man-eating beings or ogres who once haunted the area. They were hideous and vicious and might have had wings. But they could be outsmarted and defeated, which is a story we hear all around the world. The ogres are tricked with wooden images of men and then killed by ancient Hawaiians. Aikanawa/Nawau sounds like it could be an unidentified primate or great ape species native to Hawaii. As far as we know, Hawaii has no native primate species, not even extinct species from the past. So if Aikanaka is real, it has gone completely undetected by science in every way. The ogres of Niihau could also be an unidentified primate. The mention of wings makes me think of the Pacific Northwest's bat squatch. They're described as winged, ape-like beings with glowing red eyes. Of course, they wouldn't be the same species, but perhaps could be related. Lastly is the mysterious Menehune. I've already mentioned that they have similarities to the equally mysterious Turiahu. They're both humanoid and use tools and other humanoid items like flutes. The claim that they built ancient structures is also quite fascinating. This makes them akin to the Tuaha De Danann and the Turiahu. Supposedly, the Menehune only came out at night to build things, so we get a night association as well as the implication of advanced technology. The short height, 2 to 3 feet tall, also makes them similar to the Greys. It's also important to note that on the island of Flores in Indonesia, skeletons have been found of 3 feet tall hominids called Homo floresiensis. I'm not saying these are skeletons of Greys, but I'm also not saying that either. Additionally, we have no proof that Homo floresiensis ever came to Hawaii, but I thought it was worth mentioning. The Indonesians have their own myth about the Ibu Gogo. They were ape-like, small and hairy, were said to have their own language, and kidnapped human children. According to one tale, the last Ibu Gogo were killed by the Indonesians in the 1700s, so the Ibu Gogo, Homo floresiensis, and the Menehune could all be the same creature. Now, there are some structures supposedly built with the Menehune in Hawaii that I want to talk about. Again, I do not want to imply that ancient BIPOC peoples could not have built these advanced structures. It would be impressive for any advanced people to have constructed these things, and in the Hawaiians' own myths, the Menehune made these places. So I'm going to explore these myths and the possibility that they were made by fairies/aliens. First is Kiki Aola, a historic irrigation ditch on the island of Kauai. The masonry of the ditch wall is quite advanced. The stones are fitted together so well that they don't require mortar. This type of stonework is seen nowhere else in Hawaii at this time period. British explorer Captain George Vancouver described it as being an impressive 24 feet high when he viewed it in 1793. Historians believe it predates Tahitian settlers, and the oral tradition of the island states that it was built by the Menehune under the cover of night. Some sources claim that the Menehune brought the stones for the ditch from another site 25 miles away. However, I was unable to find a credible source verifying this claim. Both AncientOrigins.com and an episode of the History Channel's America Unearthed claim this. If the rocks came from far away, this makes Kikiaola similar to Stonehenge in England. Some of the stones in that monument came from the Preseli Hills in southwest Wales. Stonehenge also has a ditch like Kikiaola. We have no idea who built it, like Kikiaola, and England is right next to Ireland, home of the Tuaha De Danann myths. The Alakoko Menehune fish pond, and according to some sources, the ceremonial sites on Necker Island, are also said to have been made by the Menehune. Lastly, I want to mention that it has been put forth that the Menehune were small in social stature, not literal stature, and were not supernatural, but rather lower-class citizens. In 1820, Hawaii took its first census and 65 people were listed as Menehune. In a Hawaii Public Radio interview, Frederick Bruce Wichman states, and I quote, "The 1914 census in Waniha, there were, I believe, 14 people who claimed Menehune descent. In fact, one of them was the head fisherman for Waniha and Hina. He was a little man, a small man. His wife was almost triple his height." I hope y'all found this video as interesting as I did. My next video will be about an aquatic creature with leopard-like claws who drinks their victim's blood. Let me know in the comments if you can guess what creature it is. My hint is that I've already released a short on this being.